the past 10 years, the usage of closed-circuit television, or CCTV footage, has become an effective method of retracing a missing person or homicide victim's last known steps. We've all heard the phrase, there are two sides to every story and then the truth, but with surveillance cameras being installed in every prominent business and even in doorbells on many residences, the truth is a lot harder to manipulate when you have an eyewitness account that captures your every move indiscriminately. These are 5 true crime homicide cases that were successfully solved with assistance by surveillance camera footage. Number 1. No-Tell Motel. On Tuesday, January 4, 2011, 15-year-old Elizabeth Ennin was abducted shortly after visiting the Carriage House Motel in Lubbock County, Texas. On the night of her abduction, Elizabeth arrives at the motel at around 6:30 p.m. to babysit a family friend's 2 youngest children, while Bert Salinas, his wife and eldest daughter, went out to dinner shortly before 7 p.m. Elizabeth was reported missing at 1:30 a.m. by her mother after Bert Salinas claimed he dropped off Elizabeth shortly after 1:15 a.m., but returned 15 minutes later to Elizabeth's house a second time to drop off Elizabeth's purse, which she had supposedly forgotten in his truck. Panicked that she had not seen her daughter return earlier that evening, Elizabeth's mother calls the police and Salinas remains at the residence to assist with the missing persons report. After waiting a period of 12 hours as instructed by police, Elizabeth's mother contacts authorities to let them know her daughter is still missing. Bert Salinas is brought in for a formal interview since he was the last known person to speak to Elizabeth. Salinas went as far as implicating his own son, who had a pre-existing relationship with Elizabeth, as being potentially responsible for the missing teen's disappearance. After a large-scale search conducted by police, authorities obtained motel CCTV footage of Elizabeth's whereabouts the night of her disappearance. Without this crucial piece of video evidence, the case would have remained unsolved, and Salinas' son would have more than likely faced legal repercussions for Elizabeth's disappearance. An important detail to remember when reviewing the surveillance footage is when detectives retrieve and analyze the motel film, they discover that each frame records for 4 seconds long, but only provides 1 second of content. And with that delay in mind, authorities locate Bert and Elizabeth walking to the motel room at exactly 6:30 p.m. 25 minutes later, the Salinas family is seen leaving for dinner at 6:55 p.m. All seems normal until detectives notice something unusual on tape at around 10:45 p.m. when Bert Salinas suspiciously returned to the motel without his wife or eldest daughter, a detail he purposely left out of his spoken testimony to the authorities. Salinas previously told detectives that he didn't return to the motel until 11:30 p.m. on the night of Elizabeth's disappearance. An hour passes before any more footage is captured. At exactly 11:47 p.m., Elizabeth is seen on the motel surveillance camera walking out of room 113, but something is off about her behavior. Detectives are able to determine Elizabeth was running away from someone when she reaches the end of the motel corridor from the first to the second frame in the footage provided. Trailing closely behind her in the third frame is an agitated Bert Salinas. The corridor remains empty for a short amount of time before Salinas and Elizabeth both re-emerge on camera. Salinas is seen grabbing onto Elizabeth's arm, and it seems as though a defeated Elizabeth is being dragged back into the motel room. 8 minutes pass before Salinas and Elizabeth re-emerge on camera. This time, they both exit the room and walk simultaneously to the end of the hallway. Alternative surveillance footage from the motel lobby shows Elizabeth holding her purse and shoes in hand. It appears as though she was in a rush to retrieve her belongings and leave the motel. In an adrenaline-fueled burst of action, Elizabeth unexpectedly runs to a different exit of the motel to try to get away from Bert a second time. A frustrated Salinas corners Elizabeth in a section of the motel lobby that is clearly visible on CCTV footage. Unmistakably, the footage shows Salinas towering over Elizabeth in what looks like an intimidation tactic to keep Elizabeth from running away a third time. We lastly see the two of them walking towards the motel parking lot before exiting out of the camera's frame. This is the last known footage taken of Elizabeth before her disappearance. As a result of the footage obtained from the motel on January 20th, 2011, police arrested Bert Salinas on charges of aggravated kidnapping. Bert cooperated with authorities and admitted his involvement in the disappearance. Authorities believe Bert came home drunk, made sexual advances towards Elizabeth, and was worried about the legal ramifications of her telling her mother. On January 25th, 2011, 14 days after Elizabeth disappears, Salinas takes authorities to where he buried Elizabeth's body in a field near shallow water in Lubbock County, Texas.
I'm Detective Ray Martinez with the Lubbock Police Department. Today's date is Monday, January 24th. The time is 5:21 p.m.
We actually drove down that dirt road for seemed like a very long time, and I was beginning to question if we were on the right road.
straight ahead. Just go straight ahead. Yes, she should be there.
Okay.
The autopsy identified the cause of death as strangulation, and Elizabeth was confirmed to have been murdered during the kidnapping timeframe between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Salinas is charged with capital murder and is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Without CCTV, no one would have believed that this trusted family friend was responsible for the murder of this 15-year-old teenager. Number 2. Friends without benefits. Christina Morris was just 23 years old when she went missing in the early morning hours of August 30th, 2014. She was last seen on surveillance video around 3:45 a.m. at the shops at Legacy Mall in Plano, Texas with a male friend named Enrique. Police say that despite being the last person seen with her, Enrique had been very cooperative with authorities and initially was not considered a suspect. The only other suspect was Christina's boyfriend, Hunter Foster, who was cleared of any suspicion when his whereabouts were verified the night of Christina's disappearance. According to an anonymous testimony, Christina left the apartment with former high school classmate Enrique. In his statement to detectives, Enrique says he and Christina walked to the end of the apartment complex before going their separate ways to their respective vehicles located in different garages. CCTV footage confirms Christina and Enrique traveling to the end of the apartment complex at exactly 3:57 a.m. However, detectives notice a detail on tape that contradicts Enrique's spoken testimony. Enrique clearly stated multiple times that he and Christina parted ways after reaching the end of their friend's apartment complex. He says his car was located in a different parking garage to Christina's vehicle. Surveillance footage shows both Enrique and Christina walking simultaneously into the same parking garage, side by side after they reach the end of the apartment complex. And a different surveillance camera from outside the parking garage shows both Christina and Enrique's car parked in front of one another in the same garage. Although both cars are visible, Christina's driver's side door is too far out of range to see if she ever steps inside of her vehicle. Only Enrique's gray Camaro is turned on and leaves the parking garage shortly afterwards, presumably with Christina inside of the vehicle. Christina's car remains dormant in its occupied spot for days on end, with Christina nowhere in sight. And with this discovery in mind, detectives bring Enrique back in for further questioning and present a layout of the parking garage in an attempt to corroborate his spoken testimony with the footage uncovered.
Is there a chance you could have parked in this garage?
No, I know for a fact it was no. Because I parked at my friend's house.
Is that your car?
Yeah.
Something's wrong, Enrique. This picture is in that garage. That picture is taken of you walking in that garage with Christina, and that's your car coming out of that same garage. That's not your car coming out of this garage. That's your car coming out of this garage. So,
I guess I parked there after I parked here in the first place. I know for a fact.
okay.
I could have moved it there when we went back
Did
to
you?
Sparky's or something. I'm not sure.
You walked in there, we got a picture of you guys walking in there together. I mean, what happened? You can't remember which way she went in the garage?
I went to my car, I guess, and she went the other way.
Enrique changes his account of the evening and claims he parked in a different parking garage when he initially arrived at his friend's apartment, but forgot he moved his car at some point in the evening to the same parking garage as Christina's vehicle. Skeptical of this version of his story, detectives obtained surveillance footage from a nearby gas station when Enrique's bank records show he purchased gas for his Camaro 6 hours after Christina's disappearance. Detectives make a chilling discovery about Enrique's visit to the gas station, as they see Enrique using a squeegee to abnormally and strategically clean only the outer rim of his trunk for an unusual amount of time. Thanks to both pieces of breakthrough evidence, it's enough visual confirmation for detectives to request for Enrique's car to be seized for DNA testing on September 26, 2014. Investigators find Christina Morris's DNA in Enrique's trunk, both on the trunk mat and rubber seal around the edges of of the trunk door. Enrique claims he has no explanation for the DNA, and on December 13, 2014, Plano police arrested Enrique in connection with Christina's disappearance. Before his arrest, the Morris family attempted to organize protests outside of Enrique's home in the hope of obtaining more answers about Christina's disappearance. Unfortunately, Enrique chose to never speak to Christina's family, even when they pleaded desperately for answers regarding Christina's whereabouts. And it isn't until September 21st, 2016, thanks to the DNA discovered in his trunk, that Enrique is found guilty of aggravated kidnapping. But without being able to locate Christina's body and with no further evidence, Enrique isn't charged with homicide.
Mr. Roach, if you'd please stand for me, sir. Verdict form reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of aggravated kidnapping as charged in the indictment.
On March 7, 2018, a man on a construction site in Anna, Texas, uncovered a human skull and notified local authorities of the grim discovery. According to Collin County Sheriff's Office, the human remains were found while excavators and construction workers were clearing the area of brush. And based on the condition of the remains, police could not immediately determine gender, age, or any other characteristics of the victim. The remains were taken to the Collin County Medical Examiner for proper identification. They positively identified the remains as belonging to Christina Morris. So almost 4 years after her kidnapping, Christina is finally laid to rest by family and loved ones. Enrique was sentenced to life in prison and won't be eligible for parole until he served at least 30 years of his life sentence. To this day, Enrique has never confessed to killing Christina Morris, nor did he ever reveal to authorities where the body of the 23-year-old was located. Number 3. Chokehold. On September 7, 2009, 27-year-old Jessica Kaler of Cedar Park, Texas was assaulted and murdered during a late-night trip to Walmart to purchase a bag of dog food. At around 1:39 a.m., Jessica drives into the Cedar Park shopping center to shop at a local Walmart after dropping off her cousin Melanie at home. Minutes later, another vehicle, a maroon truck, parks far away from the Walmart entrance at 1:44 a.m. Next, Jessica is seen on camera walking into the Walmart, and eerily, the mystery man from the maroon truck is seen walking closely behind her after she makes her entrance. It could be a coincidence, but the fact that it's so late in the evening should be disconcerting for someone traveling alone. Rather than shopping inside of the store, the man walks into the restroom and disappears out of frame. After completing her transaction, Jessica is seen exiting the Walmart. But just before she exits the store, the same mystery man comes out of the restroom and begins to speed walk behind Jessica. He is trailing closely behind her in an attempt to catch up to her walking pace. And next, Jessica exits the building and is walking to her car, as seen on the parking lot surveillance footage. Seconds pass before the same man in the baseball cap, brown shirt, and blue jeans is also seen speed walking behind her. He is closely homing in on her vehicle, even though he parked considerably further away from Jessica. And unfortunately, the footage that would have shown the attack is obstructed by a tree that blocks the camera's point of view. Detectives can only speculate at this point that the mystery man walks to the rear of Jessica's car when he steps into the same area obstructed by the tree's branches. 90 seconds pass before Jessica's car is turned on, reverses, and then leaves the shopping center. Neither the man nor Jessica re-emerge on the security footage until about an hour later at 2:52 a.m. when Jessica's car pulls back into the strip mall parking lot and is left in a vacant parking spot before the mystery man walks off to his truck. Details in the investigation later reveal that Jessica's bank card is used at a local gas station for $75 at around 3:04 a.m., even though her car is still seen dormant in the shopping center parking lot. And over 12 hours pass before Jessica's body is discovered at 3:46 p.m. by her cousin Melanie. Melanie received several calls from Jessica's friends and co-workers letting her know Jessica didn't arrive to work that day. Jessica's body is found upright in the driver's seat, but lifeless with her skin bright red due to heat stroke from being left in her exposed vehicle all day long.
Hello? Cedar Park 911, what's happening? 911, please. I need emergency to the Walmart, 1431, 183. My friend is in her car, and she's I don't know, I think she's passed out. She's totally red. We're right by the Little Caesars, Walmart.
And on September 8, 2009, Jessica's autopsy revealed that she had been strangled on the night of her murder before succumbing to heat stroke. Prosecutors say Jessica was strangled twice, sexually assaulted, and left for dead in her car at the Cedar Park Shopping Center. And the strangulation left her so severely brain damaged that even though she survived the asphyxiation, she was unable to walk to any nearby stores or answer her cell phone for help, which ran over a period of 30 times during her disappearance. The CCTV footage revealed pertinent details not only about the murder suspect, but the distinct maroon truck they drove into the shopping center. Using information belonging to the truck, specifically a large silver plate on the tailgate of the truck that says Chevrolet, police were able to issue a BOLO, which stands for Be on the Lookout for the Maroon Vehicle. They also used surveillance footage from the nearby gas station the suspect visited after Jessica's strangulation to get a better look at the suspect's face. With his image now out to the public, the strategy pays off and police receive an anonymous tip on who the mystery man might be. The caller provides a name of Crispin Harmel, and when running his name through the police database, the police get a match and locate dash cam footage of a traffic stop that was conducted about 3 weeks prior to Jessica's death involving the mystery man and his vehicle. When reviewing the footage, police see the specific maroon truck and wait for the driver to step out of the vehicle. When he does, he perfectly matches the description of the man caught on video trailing behind Jessica and later using her bank card on CCTV footage. He was pulled over 3 weeks before Jessica's death for expired registration tags, and with this breakthrough in information, police go to Crispin's home for further questioning. Upon arriving, they spot the same red truck as seen in the Walmart parking lot with modifications made to the tailgate, and when approached, Crispin agrees to speak with authorities about his relationship with Jessica.
This is embarrassing. So there is a website called LonelyHouseWifeHookups.com. I don't know if you ever heard of this. It's kind of like a dating site. I met Jessica through there. Me and Jessica were IMing each other.
It was through the internet site that y'all were doing this IM thing?
Yes, it was through the Lonely Wives Hookup. I was like, well, why don't I just meet you at Walmart? And that's where we met. She's like, well, I'm going to go in there, do shopping, and meet me at my car. When I'm done, she told me what she was driving, told me what she was going to be wearing. We went out for maybe about an hour. Went to a park over there off Buttercup. Had our discreet, no strings attached relationship. When we were sitting there talking, told her about how I stayed in my truck a lot, struggling, gas money, stuff like that. And she's like, well, here. I leaned over, wrote on my hand her PIN number, said, well, I'll just take my debit card, go get gas.
He explained that she told him, just bring it back and leave it at my car at where I work at HEB.
Man, I probably drove around that parking lot for like 15 minutes trying to find her car, and I didn't see it.
Where's the debit card?
I chunked it. I didn't know what to do. I had that girl's credit card.
During his initial interview, Crispin claims he met up with Jessica for a hookup on a dating app, but this was later disproven by surveillance videos showing that the two of them never interacted inside of the Walmart, and an examination of their computers and phones found no links to such dating websites or apps. According to Crispin's account, after meeting Jessica in the Walmart parking lot in the early morning hours of September 7th, he begins to divulge his money issues to Jessica. He claims that Jessica was sympathetic and released her debit card and PIN number to Crispin to help him with some gas money. Crispin explains that's why her debit card was used for $75 after Jessica's car is abandoned in the parking lot at 2:52 a.m. Crispin claims he threw the debit card away after hearing about Jessica's murder, claiming he didn't want any involvement in the case. And after questioned about his suspicious behavior on CCTV footage, Crispin becomes paralyzed with fear when he realizes that his actions were captured on camera. He previously believed authorities only contacted him because of the debit card transactions and requested for an attorney to be present at this point in the interview. Despite his false allegations, the district attorney is left without sufficient evidence to charge Crispin with murder, so instead they charge him with tampering with evidence as he pleads guilty to modifying his truck, a potential crime scene, and for throwing away Jessica's bank card. Crispin receives 10 years in prison while the prosecuting attorneys attempt to build up more incriminating evidence against him. Unbelievably so, it takes 3 years for Walmart to obtain a copy of alternative surveillance video video with a different view of Jessica's vehicle in the parking lot. Prosecuting attorney Nancy Niemer can visually confirm that Crispin is walking to his truck when he makes a distinct and strategic turn to Jessica's vehicle. When Jessica reaches her car, she drops the bag of dog food in her back seat and then presumably gets in the driver's seat. Next, Niemer explains that Crispin, who Jessica did not know and was not planning on meeting, gets into the back seat of her car and used a seatbelt to get Jessica into a chokehold. He then forces her to drive to a nearby park where he sexually assaulted and strangled her using his hands. Niemer's argument continued by stating that Crispin thinks she's dead, but she wakes up unexpectedly, so he grabs the tie string around her swimsuit top and wraps it around her throat and continues to strangle the 27-year-old woman. After Jessica becomes limp, Crispin drives her car back to the shopping center near the Walmart in Cedar Park. He then gets out of her vehicle, jumps into his truck, and less than 5 minutes later arrives at the gas station where he uses Jessica's debit card to put $75 worth of gas in his vehicle at exactly 3:04 a.m. Prosecutors described Jessica as an innocent victim who was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they further explained that if it wasn't for Crispin's strangulation of Jessica, she wouldn't have had the brain damage that led to her sitting in a hot car and dying via heat stroke. Her inability to answer her cell phone after her ineffective asphyxiation ultimately led to her death due to the fatal temperatures inside of her vehicle during blazing outdoor weather. The jury did not seek the death penalty, but Crispin Harmel was charged with capital murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for murdering the 27-year-old aspiring kindergarten teacher. Number 4. Ice Cold Heart. On the night of March 31st, 2011, Kenya Monhe, a 19-year-old college student, went out drinking with a group of friends when she unexpectedly vanished during the course of the evening. She was notably intoxicated and left behind her phone, purse, and keys at the nightclub she attended. Kenya's boyfriend calls her family the next morning to let them know that Kenya failed to come home the prior evening. Kenya's friends are then contacted by Kenya's family to further discuss their night out and to return her belongings. Kenya's stepfather, Tony, files a missing persons report and detectives begin retracing Kenya's footsteps. So far, authorities know Kenya used a fake ID to get inside a popular nightclub in the downtown Denver area. When reviewing surveillance footage from the club and surrounding businesses and apartment complexes, detectives are unable to find any further leads as to Kenya's disappearance. Although the 19-year-old appears on CCTV footage multiple times throughout the course of the evening, there is zero indication that she is in distress or in any imminent danger. With the investigation hitting a dead end, Tony receives Kenya's belongings back and begins his own private detective work. When searching through Kenya's phone for any clues, Tony finds a text from a man named Travis Forbes asking if she got home alright. This is Kenya's last known point of contact before she went missing in the early morning hours of April 1st. Tony contacts Travis and the two meet at a gas station to discuss his relation to Kenya. Travis claims he gave Kenya a ride home after seeing her alone, wandering aimlessly downtown. He remembers picking her up at around 2 a.m. after he spotted Kenya talking to a homeless man. On the route from downtown to her house, Kenya requested to stop at a nearby gas station to get some cigarettes. This is where Travis's involvement allegedly ends, as he claims Kenya left with the mystery man at the gas station who had cigarettes in his possession. Travis then leaves the gas station and drives away home. On April 5th, 2011, Denver police interview Travis and are suspicious of where his involvement ends.
She was drunk and very emotional, and she was looking for somebody to, comfort her. Yes, to comfort her. He asked him for a cigarette, and they walked off, and that's it. That was it, and I went home.
Did you ever have any contact with her?
No.
Travis worked out of a shared bakery in Denver, Colorado, where he made organic granola bars, and an unusual act in Travis's routine caught the attention of the bakery owner, who ended up contacting and submitting CCTV footage over to detectives. It showed Travis wearing large yellow rubber gloves and rolling in an unusually large tape-sealed white cooler into the bakery's freezer. Now, granola bars are not meant to be frozen or stored in a freezer, so the act seemed out of routine to the investigators reviewing the footage. Travis then purposely shuts down the security cameras in the bakery to conceal whatever task he performed next. Detectives were suspicious of Travis's story to begin with, and they now have visual confirmation further implicating the young entrepreneur. However, with no physical evidence such as DNA tying him to Kenya's disappearance or murder, detectives are unable to press any formal charges against Travis. Following his initial interview, Travis agreed to come back for a follow-up polygraph test, but never showed up. It seemed as though the case was going to go cold for quite some time unless a confession was divulged or breakthrough evidence was discovered, and as fate would have it, Travis Forbes was taken into custody by Fort Collins investigators on a charge completely unrelated to Kenya's disappearance. Travis caused another victim named Lydia Tillman to slip into a coma for 5 months after he assaulted, strangled, and doused her in bleach. The 31-year-old wanted to come clean about Lydia's assault and his previous homicide of Kenya Monhe. In exchange for his confession, Travis requested to carry out his his prison sentence without being labeled a sex offender. And along with pleading guilty to Kenya's murder, Travis agreed to show investigators where he buried her remains.
Well, everything is true about what I told you, except for obviously dropping her off. And she started hitting me. I started hitting her back.
When you say by hitting, were you punching her?
5 months after the crime, Travis Forbes admits he killed Kenya Monhey.
And then she started to scream. And I strangled her, strangled her, I strangled her. And I killed her.
Travis took investigators to the exact spot where he buried Kenya. She was found in a shallow grave in Weld County under a cottonwood tree about 40 miles from Denver, Colorado.
This is where you guys stop.
He stepped out of the truck and he let out this like wail, this just blood curdling wail. I thought, this is where she is.
Right there. Right there.
Back at the Fort Collins Police Department, Travis said he found Kenya intoxicated after she strayed from her friends, wandering around the downtown area, and picked her up. While in his van, according to Travis, she passed out and he took advantage of her being drunk. Travis confessed to having sex with an unconscious Kenya in the backseat of his vehicle after falsely claiming he would take her back to her friends. Travis continues by saying that Kenya regained consciousness shortly after he sexually assaulted her. And according to Travis, Kenya started hitting him. Travis began hitting her back. Kenya then started screaming and Travis strangles the 19-year-old to death. Travis then drove around the entire day with Kenya's body in the back of his van, hiding her inside the big white cooler he later wheeled into the bakery's freezer, as seen on CCTV footage. He then goes on to burn everything that Kenya touched, including her clothing and the van's carpet, and drives her naked body to her shallow grave. Travis Forbes is found guilty of first-degree murder and is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Kenya Monhey. Without Travis's second crime and the bakery owner submitting the surveillance footage, Kenya's family would have never received the justice she deserved. Number 5. California Dreaming. 23-year-old Daylene Carlson from Stockton, California, went out to Finnegan's Pub before she disappeared in the late morning hours of August 7, 2011. Daylene recently moved in with her aunt Maggie Baker in June of 2011 to start her life as an independent young adult in California. Just 3 months later, Daylene disappears after a night out with friends and fails to come home before her 1 a.m. curfew. She was last seen at 12:48 a.m. on the bar's surveillance footage cozying up to a mystery man with a backwards hat and goatee. The man turns out to be 25-year-old Jason Gilly, an acquaintance to Daylene and her cousin. Since he is more than likely the last person to talk to Daylene before she disappeared, the authorities get in contact with him to set up an at-home interview. Jason tells police that he and Daylene were planning on leaving the bar together, but he had to go home unexpectedly because his young son fell ill. Jason recommends the authorities talk to Daylene's ex-boyfriend Jacob, who she was in contact with that same evening. Jacob is then brought in for further questioning after being spotted on the bar's surveillance footage at around 1:09 a.m. After an extensive interrogation, Jacob is cleared of any suspicion when he gives his testimony and notifies authorities that Daylene mentioned a new man in her life by the name of James. Detectives jump on the new lead, and after investigating James, his location on the night of Daylene's disappearance is verified to be nowhere near the Stockton area, so he is cleared as a suspect, and it looks as though his detectives are back to square one. However, James provides a vital clue that eventually leads detectives to apprehending the correct suspect. He informs authorities that Daylene sent him a text the night of her disappearance, letting him know that she was going to go to a friend's house to continue to drink after leaving Finnegan's Pub. It's the lead detectives are hoping for, and they begin compiling a list of 24-hour liquor stores open in the area. If Daylene and her friend did continue to party, they more than likely went to one of these locations to purchase more alcohol. Now, there is only one store in the nearby area that is open that late, a Food 4 Less that has 24-hour surveillance cameras. It's a stretch, but the lead pays off when the grocery store surveillance footage shows Daylene walking into Food 4 Less at exactly 1:25 a.m. with Jason Gilly by her side. Jason Gilly has now been caught in a lie about driving home to attend to his ailing son and is brought in for a second interview. In his second testimony, Jason said he left the bar with Daylene, then he forgot that he went to Food 4 Less to pick up alcohol, but dropped her off back at Finnegan's before heading home to his son. In his third story, Jason admitted to bringing Daylene back to his house, and she then accompanied him as he made 2 marijuana sales between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. He claims while he was taking Daylene back to her aunt's house, she was aggressively drunk and wanting to get out of the vehicle before reaching her destination. By the fourth story, Jason told detectives he and Daylene had consensual sex on a couch in his back patio. Jason then claims that 30 to 40 minutes later, he was driving Daylene home when she began violently screaming at him. He claims he dropped her off on the Crosstown Freeway in Stockton. Then he got gas shortly afterwards and drove back home before 5 a.m. When reviewing surveillance video from the gas station he visited, we see that statement contradicts the video when he arrives at the gas station between 10 and 10:30 a.m., not the 5 a.m. time frame he originally testified. And on the surveillance footage, Jason is seen inspecting his vehicle and brushing dried mud off of his shoulder. Although this is highly suspicious behavior, it isn't enough to incriminate Jason, and he walks away a free man until Daylene's body is discovered on October 17, 2011 by a tractor operator harvesting corn in Escalon, California. Her body was found with a total of 3 gunshot wounds, 1 to the back of her skull and 2 to her abdominal area. Detectives testified her body was without any clothing, and several .22 caliber casings were found at the site of the body's location. A strike of luck helps detectives incriminate Jason when they receive an anonymous tip that he has an unregistered firearm that matches the .22 caliber casings found at the scene of the crime. Jason Gilley is found guilty that same October of 2011 for kidnapping and killing 23-year-old Daylene Carlson. Police say Daylene knew Jason for about a week before she disappeared that night of August 7, 2011. They believe the night she went missing, she willingly left Finnegan's Pub with Jason, as confirmed by CCTV footage.
From the bar, drove into your house. Didn't make any stops. Wait. I left the bar with Daylene to Food for Less. I bought a bottle of Jaeger.
Jason changes his story.
I said, do you want to come back to the house, crash on the couch? She said, okay.
Unbeknownst to his grandmother, Jason didn't come home alone.
I'm sorry. Jason, let's make it better. Let's make it better right now, okay? Did you guys have sex? No. Jason. Jason. We had sex and we hung out for a little bit more, and then she said she wanted to go home.
Through his tears, Jason tells a new tale, that he was driving Daylene home in the early hours of Sunday morning when they had an argument.
She got out of the car, so she what? She just got out of the car. I don't know. I just drove. I think I even got gas that thing.
But they think Jason is still hiding something. They push him to reveal what really happened to Daylene.
And what else has slipped your mind, Jason? No. Jason. No. Where are we going to find the body? Help us find her. Help us bring her home. Her family deserves it, dude. You have a family. She has a family. She deserves it. I know that. She does. I did not do anything to her. Jason. Don't do this. Please, really. Jason. Can I have a lawyer?
With that, the interview is over.
Police say inconsistencies in Jason's statements and the anonymous tip of him having an unregistered firearm led to his arrest 2 months after Daylene went missing. A dozen witnesses testified during Jason's hearing, revealing in part that Jason gave a false alibi, changed his story multiple times, and was in possession of the murder weapon during the night Daylene was killed, execution style. And ballistic evidence further confirmed the link between Jason's gun and Daylene's gunshot wounds, which only further solidified Jason's guilty verdict. The jury found Jason guilty of murder with a deadly weapon during the commission of a kidnapping, but couldn't charge him with sexual assault as Daylene's body was too badly decomposed at the time of the discovery. When researching the story, I stumbled upon Jason Gilley's inmate pen pal biography where he encourages women to send him selfies and write letters to him in prison. And according to the Stockton Police Department, Jason Gilley was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and he is currently serving his life sentence at the San Joaquin County Jail. Had it not been for the impromptu plan to shop at the 24-hour Food for Less, Daylene's family would have never known what happened to her on that tragic August night. And that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much if you made it to the end. This one is a bit of a longer one, I know, but it took a lot more research and a lot more screen capping to be able to put this and compile it together. I think I'm going to continue on with this trend I have with the top 5 compilation because it seems to be attracting the most amount of attention and pleasing the viewers. If you guys prefer a different format, for example, if you prefer the more singular stories where it's just one case that I'm talking about, drop it in the comments and let me know, because I always look at the comments just to see your guys' feedback and what you guys prefer or want. But as of now, it seems like you guys are liking the 5 compilations. So just drop your feedback off down below. I will read it and greatly appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for your continued support and your patience while I bang out these videos.